You ever have a daughter or a son that's learning to drive and you try to help them to say, stay away from these unfamiliar territories, because if they don't know how to get there or get home, then they get lost in a variety of things? Well, there are some unfamiliar and dangerous territories. Now, some of these are, like I said, they have value. But anybody familiar with Facebook? Anybody on Facebook? A lot of us are on Facebook. Well, I'm actually not. I just have an ID, but I never go on Facebook. But it's interesting, a lot of our students, they have access to Facebook, and they can, do you know they can access pornography through Facebook? There's many things that they can get through Facebook. But it's interesting, they're not actually on Facebook too much. You know why? Partly it's because you're on there. They don't want mom or dad to be able to see all the stuff that they're posting, and then mom or dad to post something, oh, that was cute, Sonny, you know, or something like that. That's embarrassing. So where do they go? They go to other places. They go to Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Vine. Some of these you say, well, I don't even know what they are. Maybe you're familiar with them. These are not the extent of them. These are just a few of them. Let's consider some others. Pinterest. Again, some of these have great value, but some of them, they can be used in a very disturbing and very ungodly way. Kik, WhatsApp, Snapchat is the one in particular that just really alarms me. It has the opportunity where photos or videos supposedly disappear after a few seconds. So you can send something to someone or to a group of people, and then after about 10 seconds, it's gone. Now consider the inhibitions that would be released if you thought that was out there and it was never going to be found. Mom or dad are never going to see it. I can send this to somebody that I don't know, or maybe even somebody that I do know, but it's not going to be traceable. But you know, actually, it doesn't disappear. It's in the cyber world somewhere. But just the idea, though, that they can do that is very alarming. Driving into dangerous and unfamiliar territory. But you know, it is good for us as parents to teaching our kids how to drive and how to get someplace. You drive them there, you let them drive, you go with them, or maybe you print them some directions and help them to get someplace. That's a good thing. So what I'm encouraging us, all of us are encouraging you to do, is that it would be good to actually have some driving conversations with your kids about internet usage. It's good to give the directions and not to rely on a GPS to tell them how to get somewhere. You're the parent. I'm the parent. We have the privilege and the opportunity and the responsibility to give the proper directions. So we need to be proactive in exercising grace with our kids. And by the way, when we help them and we even provide boundaries, that is providing grace for our kids. That's not coming down on them. That's providing grace for them. But I also want us to think about the fact that there are some times when a driver, after they've turned 16 or whatever and they've gotten their license, I've gotten a call or two when my daughter was lost. She took a wrong turn, she didn't know where she was, and she calls frantic. By the way, I'm glad she calls me. I'm glad she calls her mom, because the parent has the opportunity to help provide the guidance that is needed to help get them back on the right path. What happens if in the course of your conversation with your students, with your sons or daughters, or on their own, they come to you and say, I'm lost in this area, Dad or Mom? Are we going to be such that we come down hard on them? Yeah, we need to provide boundaries, we need to provide guidance, but we need to react with grace with our kids. They need us at this time. So whether we're providing proactive grace or reactive grace, that's part of what we get to do as parents. I want us to consider this verse, and it's part of a verse from Romans chapter 5, verse 20. But where sin increased, grace increased all the more. This school is called Grace Preparatory Academy, and it's been my prayer and my prayer that grace would reign supreme on this campus. And when grace reigns, that means that God reigns. And that grace is not simply a word that we use, but it is an evidence of God taking over and us letting Him and be glad that He is doing it. And where sin abounds, and by the way, we're going to expose some sin tonight. Where sin abounds, let's not run away from it. Let's run to it, but let's recognize that God's grace supersedes it and overflows it and blows it away. And there's a couple other things that we want to talk about, because this is not about condemnation. It's about God's grace. So if your son or daughter, we don't want to condemn, we want to bring them up. In addition, it's not about shame. It's not about hiding anymore. It's about God's grace. It's not about being unaware. We don't need to stick our head in the sand. Just pretend it's not there. We need to keep moving forward and address it. It's not about denial. That couldn't happen to my kid. It's about grace. It's not about fear. We don't need to fear this, but we need to respect the Lord and follow Him. It's not about pride. We had some significant prayer time with members of the board throughout this week, and some of us in administration and so forth. And one of the things that we prayed about is that God would break us down from our pride, not only our students, but also us as parents. So that, for example, after this we have a breakout session. It's called Confronting Internet Pornography. We thought about, what about that parent who thinks, I really need to go to that, but I don't want to go to that because I don't want to be seen going to that. What might people think about me? Well, let's let God break down that pride and let God's grace abound. Let's not despair, but God's grace abound. And as parents, let's not just feel like we are inadequate, because ultimately we are inadequate, but in Christ we are completely adequate for the task that He's called us to and for the life that we live in Him. And it's also not about trying harder. It's not about trying to just kick this thing. It's only about God doing what He wants to do the only way that He can, and not us. Where sin increased, grace increased all the more. So thank you for being here at Sound the Alarm. And I pray that the Lord would touch you in a special way tonight. And collectively that we will recognize that this is kind of the beginning of a journey. We don't know what God's going to accomplish here tonight, but we're going to leave that in His hands. But one of the things that we can say is that God's got a story for each of us to tell. And Brad Hall is going to come and share a little bit of his family story about God's grace and their story in his life.